And yes, my wife did not grow up Christian. I think it's fair to say that she grew up in a Hindu family, but not a particularly religious family in either direction. In fact, when I met my wife, we were both, I would consider myself an agnostic or an atheist, and that's what I think she would have considered herself as well. You know, everybody has to come to their own arrangement here. The way that we've come to our arrangement is she's my best friend. We talk to each other about this stuff. So we decided to raise our kids Christian. Our two oldest kids who go to school, they go to a Christian school. Our 8-year-old did his first communion about a year ago. That's the way that we have come to our arrangement. But thank you. My 8-year-old was also very proud of his first communion. Thank you, guys. I'll tell him that Ole Miss wishes him the best. But I think everybody has to have this own conversation when you're in a marriage. I mean, it's true for friends of mine who are in Protestant and Catholic marriages, friends of mine who are in, atheist and Christian marriages. You just got to talk to the only advice I can give is you just got to talk to the person that God has put you with, and you've got to make those decisions as a family unit. For us, it works out. Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church. As I've told her, and I've said publicly, and I'll say now in front of 10,000 of my closest friends, do I hope eventually that she is somehow moved by the same thing that I was moved in by church? Yeah, I honestly do wish that, because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way.
So we've heard about Vice President JD Vance expressing hope that his wife and the mother of his children will one day be moved by the Christian God and the Christian gospel and convert from Hinduism to Christianity. And he caught a lot of backlash for saying so. There are plenty of reasons why what he said is kind of gross, and we'll get into some of those reasons, but he is now defending what he said. For some quick background, Usha Vance is Hindu and JD is Catholic, but he is sure to identify as just a Christian for the most part because not all Christians consider Catholics to be one of them. I'm not going to get into that discussion right now, but it is interesting that he seems to somewhat understand that his Catholicism isn't great for the evangelical brand he's trying to cultivate or for the evangelical base he is desperate to appeal to. When he and his wife got married, according to JD, neither of them were very religious. Neither were actively practicing any religion, and it just wasn't a huge part of their relationship. However, recently, JD heard the call of Jesus and he heeded that call, which was convenient because as a now super MAGA Republican politician, a reformed never-Trumper, if you will, his newly found faith in the Christian God would only help catapult him to the top of the political world. Well, that and the backing of his tech billionaire beneficiary. Nonetheless, this was very convenient because JD Vance couldn't possibly hope to inherit the MAGA movement if he was anything but completely devoted to Christ, at least outwardly. Why are he and other Republicans held to a higher religious standard than Trump himself? I'm not sure. There's a lot of magical thinking involved in their justifications as far as why Trump cheating on all of his wives, being convicted of sex crimes against women, never going to church, being unable to mention a single book or story from the Bible, defrauding thousands if not millions of his supporters, etc., is all acceptable in a man who is seen to be leading a Christian revival in the world's most Christian nation. They love an imperfect vessel. But the JD Vance that Usha married was a very different man from the one that she, for some reason, remains married to today. Usha Vance was a Democrat. She was not a fan of Donald Trump's. She's highly educated, and she had a very prestigious job as an attorney before she stopped working to support her husband's political career. But as far as the kids went, and I'm not suggesting that he doesn't love or even like his kids, but he has spoken about them in a manner that rubbed people the wrong way in the past.
So I call Trump and I'm like, hey, sir, what's going on? He's like, JD, you missed a very important phone call. And now I'm going to have to pick somebody else. And I like tense up and almost have a heart attack. And the crazy thing about it is my son, who's 7, is in the hotel room with me. And he's really into Pokemon cards right now. He's going through a Pokemon phase. Are you guys into Pokemon?
I am. Back in the day.
Okay,
Yeah,
That's a big phase right now, I think, in general.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's really into it. So he's trying to talk to me about Pikachu. And I'm on the phone with Donald Trump. And I'm like, son, shut the hell up for 30 seconds about Pikachu. This is the most important phone call of my life. Please just let me take this phone call.
Well, let's revisit JD's original comments about Usha and her religion. First, here is the full question that was posed to JD. It's very long, but I think it's worth hearing the whole thing.
What I want to ask is,
Okay.
you are married to a woman who is not Christian. In her Wikipedia, I mean, I just looked it up. I wanted to know what her faith was. I didn't know this before. But she still calls herself Hindu. You are raising three kids in interracial, cultural, racial, religious household. How are you maintaining, or how are you teaching your kids not to keep your religion ahead of their mother's religion? Or how are you teaching them that your kind, they're that kind who got here just few years or few decades ago is different or is better than your mom's kind who got here just a generation before? How are you balancing that? And when you talk about too many immigrants here, when did you guys decide that number? Why did you sell us a dream? You made us spend our youth, our wealth in this country and gave us a dream. You don't owe us anything. We have worked hard for it. Then how can you as a vice president stand there and say that we have too many of them now and we are going to take them out to people who are here rightfully so by paying the money that you guys asked us? You gave us the path, and now how can you stop it and tell us we don't belong here anymore? We talked about Christianity, all of this. I'm not even Christian, and I'm here standing to show support. Why are we making Christianity one of the major things that you have to have in common to be one of you guys, to show that I love America just as much as you do? Why is that still a question? Why do I have to be a Christian?
And now let's hear JD's response.
So on the question of immigration, so first of all, I can believe that we should have lower immigration levels, but if the United States passed a law and made a promise to somebody, the United States, of course, has to honor that promise. Nobody's talking about that. I'm talking about people who came in violation of the laws of the United States of America, and I'm talking about in the future reducing the number. Now, you asked a personal question about our interfaith household, and yes, my wife did not grow up Christian. I think it's fair to say that she grew up in a Hindu family, but not in a particularly religious family in either direction. In fact, when I met my wife, we were both, I would consider myself an agnostic or an atheist, and that's what I think she would have considered herself as well. You know, everybody has to come to their own arrangement here. The way that we've come to our arrangement is she's my best friend. We talk to each other about this stuff. So we decided to raise our kids Christian. Our two oldest kids who go to school, they go to a Christian school. Our 8-year-old did his first communion about a year ago. That's the way that we have come to our arrangement. But, thank you. My 8-year-old was also very proud of his first communion. Thank you, guys. I'll tell him that Old Miss wishes him the best.
So obviously people were calling him out for hypocrisy, asserting there is an element of personal choice and free will for oneself and one's family when addressing these complicated matters, which I would agree with. But his party doesn't seem too hot for personal choice when it comes to other matters. That aside, he was also getting called out for the fact that he expects her to convert to his religion, but he doesn't seem burdened by any expectations of him converting to hers. The comments were incredibly dismissive and disrespectful of the ancient tradition that his wife comes from, whether she's practicing or not. Religion is so much more than a personal belief system, especially within immigrant communities. It is your community. It's how you spend the holidays. It's the backbone of your family traditions. JD Vance invalidates all of that in the woman that he chose to marry. Not to mention, it suggests that he's not happy with his wife just the way she is. He wants to change her, which is a terrible foundation for any relationship, let alone a marriage. In response to the criticism, JD has said that his Christian faith tells me the gospel is true and is good for human beings. Usha herself encouraged me to re-engage with my faith many years ago. She is not a Christian and has no plans to convert, but like many people in an interfaith marriage or any interfaith relationship, I hope she may one day see things as I do. Regardless, I'll continue to love and support her and talk to her about faith and life and everything else because she's my wife. Yes, Christians have beliefs, and yes, those beliefs have many consequences, one of which is that we want to share them with other people. That is a completely normal thing, and anyone who's telling you otherwise has an agenda. Part of me wants to say, well, at this point, it's her fault for staying. If your husband does a complete 180 on you and decides to support a tyrant that he once said he would never support and becomes super religious all of a sudden, even if it is just performative, then yes, leaving the marriage seems reasonable. Again, the JD that she married is not the JD she remains married to. And that's one of the things that is so scary about marriage in general, that people change. And as they change, your relationship with them will inevitably change. The scary part is that these changes can happen after you've already invested in a life with that person, after you've maybe bought property with them and had multiple children with them. So leaving becomes much easier said than done the further you are into that marriage. And I want to be careful because I don't want to excuse the fact that, yes, she has stumped for him at the RNC and on cable news, defending him and his newfound political positions, supporting the administration and Donald Trump, and ignoring the racist remarks made against herself and people who look like her. I mentioned that they have 3 children, so that certainly complicates matters, but if I was Usha, I would actually want to get my children away from the world that their father has decided to enter and become a major leader within, away from the people their father is choosing to associate with, away from the values that world would seek to instill within my children. JD Vance couldn't even condemn the incredibly hateful and racist and fascist group chat that was leaked of the Young Republicans. He even recently parroted Trump's insane claim about Haitian immigrants, and by recently, I mean last week. And I don't want to get too gossipy, but the narrative surrounding Usha is that either she's staying with JD for the clout and the money, nothing in her past really suggests that, but proximity to power, I imagine, can be intoxicating for many, or she's stuck. Considering how much she has aged within just the past year, I'm inclined to believe it's the latter. Usha is just 2 years older than I am. I have plenty of gray hairs. I think it's genetic, but I dye them. I respect her for not dyeing hers, especially in a world where she's surrounded by bottled blondes with Mar-a-Lago face. Not dyeing her hair can be seen as a form of protest. She could have gone the Priyanka Chopra route, become a glamorous conservative brown woman with proximity to whiteness, but she didn't do that. Instead, her face looks natural, which I love, but tired. She looks gaunt. And I'm not trying to insult her physical features. I think she's beautiful, but my God, she looks sad. At this point, I'm more inclined to believe that they have some sort of legal mechanism preventing her from leaving him, because for JD, the only thing that matters to him is obviously his political ambition, and every respectable conservative man knows that you can't be taken seriously in politics without a respectable conservative wife, Melania Trump notwithstanding. Maybe Usha is worried that she'll lose her kids. I don't know. All I know about Usha Vance is not that much, which again, I respect. I respect anyone who chooses privacy for themselves, but what I don't respect is her lack of a voice. Again, I'm inclined to believe that the reason she hasn't spoken out against the horrific things that the administration is doing to immigrants and even American-born people of color is because she's being threatened not to. She was once a high-powered attorney. Presumably, she has a voice and she knows how to use it, so there must be a reason why she's not doing so now. Or maybe I'm being far too gracious to someone who sits comfortably close to the seat of unyielding, unchecked, undemocratic power. She is safe because of who she married. Perhaps her family is safe, and I'm of course referring to her immigrant parents. There are plenty of immigrants within the Trump circle who are not worried about getting deported, so that's nothing new. Again, Melania Trump, who has never ever been known for her intellect nor her intellectual contributions to the world, came to this country on the Einstein visa. But speaking personally, I also, full disclosure, am married to a white man who is not religiously practicing. I'm not either, so for us it works, even though we come from different cultural and religious backgrounds. We're both American though, we were both raised in the same community. However, if we had 3 kids together and he started insisting that we send those kids to Christian schools and that I go with him to a Christian church every Sunday, we would have a huge problem because the marriage that I would have found myself in is not the marriage that I once agreed to enter into. Fortunately for me, I don't think my husband has any kind of presidential or political aspirations, so perhaps I won't have to worry about any of that, but I would be lying if I said it wasn't a conversation that we had before getting married. People's relationships to faith and religion change as they go through life. That is understandable. You have to be able to support your partner while maintaining your own boundaries and while maintaining the marriage. But sometimes things can go a bridge too far to the point where you might have to seriously consider a divorce because the values are no longer in alignment. And as a brown woman married to a white man, the whitewashing of my cultural identity is a concern, especially because we live in white America, right? There's more working against me than there is against him. And I'm in Texas, no less. My husband has never expected me to conform to his family or to their religion or traditions any more than I've expected him to conform to mine. What JD Vance is doing to Usha, the expectations that he has of her, is disrespectful to everything she is as a person. It is erasure. And unless JD is also going to temple and studying the Bhagavad Gita, Usha needs to either get out or admit that she's on board with her husband and his thinly veiled political aspirations. If not the latter, we all know that Erica Kirk is looking for a new man. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.